What is up, Pop Culture Universe? We are back with another episode review of the Bad Batch series on Disney Plus. This is episode 15, finale part 1. It's called Return to Camino, and we are returning back with my girl Soul today, who's reviewed the whole Bad Batch series. How are you today, Soul?
Doing good. So excited to talk about this episode. Maybe one of my favorites
Ooh.
episodes of the whole season. I haven't decided if it's topped episode 1 yet, but
Mhm.
this was definitely an amazing episode, amazing music. We find out some interesting things. I got questions.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Yes, definitely a really strong episode. Yeah, absolute return to form. Big time, like compared to some of the previous episodes that we've had in the last few, let's say, month or so. Um, it really felt like Star Wars. I just felt the whole way through, especially coming up to the kind of ending of the episode was really strong. Kind of emotional things in the episode, you know, for some
Hmm.
characters, emotional arcs, and developing characters as well. I thought so. Yeah, anything else you want to add in terms of the overall summary or thoughts on the episode?
I got some chip questions, as I've been having before, about other clones, but now it's about someone else. I'm sure we'll get into it once. And yeah, just the dichotomy between Hunter and Crosshair
Yeah.
in this episode, their conversations, their meaning of what it is to be brothers and to be soldiers and to be their reasonings to either be for the Empire or not for the Empire. And
Mm.
that was very interesting to me this episode.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll do an episode review, a breakdown. Not going to spend too long on it because you know it was a lot in this episode, so we'll kind of skim through scene by scene. So episode starts with Crosshair takes Hunter from Daru to Camino. It starts off immediately after the previous episode, so he takes him to Camino. Hunter he also turns Hunter's beacon on, so the Bad Batch can follow him or track him, trace him to obviously where they're going on to Camino. As Crosshair kind of lands, we hear the same music as we hear in Attack of the Clones when Obi-Wan lands on Camino, on the kind of launch pad with all the rain and the weather and the wind and everything. So nice callbacks, and these are the little things that Filoni does, you know, to respect that, you know, the Lucas kind of prequel trilogy in this case, but that's just the extra finesse, like thanks to Filoni. So I did smile when I heard the music there. As Crosshair lands, we see Rampart. He basically leaves Hunter up to Crosshair's command in terms of his decision as what he wants to do, because he's thinking at this point where he actually says that it makes no difference if he escapes or joins back with the Bad Batch because all clones will be gone anyway, whether that's off planet, whether that's something else, which we'll come to later. But the Bad Batch then land on. They arrive at Camino. They try to land on a platform via Omega. They have to really get close to the water, which was interesting. Um, and then as they land, they arrive at some kind of hidden transport um, called a tube system, which was so I thought interesting and cool. And like I found it weird that again dichotomy might use that a few times in the episode, but the exterior terrain and weather and the environment, and then just seeing how peaceful it is, and that like the uber just slick and clean technology that they have, that they just use, and I just find it a nice interesting dichotomy like that. And then they did say it's completely off. Omega explained it's completely off grid. Nala say it's been built by them or her specifically as a scientist, as a secret uh, lab for herself to do kind of work on. And as they enter, Omega basically says that she was created there. And she also said a few different interesting things which they didn't flush out completely. So I think we have to maybe fill in some gaps or have some discussion about. She explained that the Bad Batch were all experiments from this lab. So but she was, and she also said that she was there when the Bad Batch was made. So I don't know what's going on there. Is she older than the Bad Batch? I mean, does she have some kind of de-aged thing about her where she ages slower? Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, it's weird to say that she seems to be like a preteen almost, or you know, early teens, and she's older than them, or she was there when they were kind of formed. And it makes you kind of wonder what else Nala Se was experimenting on, because there's different sized tanks there. There's kind of part clones there, like half built, half kind of mutated and stuff. So lots of interesting things happening. So what are your thoughts on the overall beginning of the episode, with obviously Crosshair with Hunter, and then speaking to Rampart, and then the Bad Batch landing, going through this tube facility?
Yeah, when we got to this secret lab, my first thought was like, is this where Grogu came from too? Because they were, when Omega was saying I was born here, and then also saying I was at, basically she was at their birth of the Bad Batch. And I was thinking more along the lines of, we know that the clones have accelerated growth, and maybe she, like Boba Fett, is at normal growth, and then so that's why she's probably lived a longer life than the Bad Batch, but she is younger in age than the Bad Batch. So that's the way I took it. It's possible that she could have slowed down growth as well. Who knows exactly what was done with her in that lab. So that was super. Those little tidbits, I was like, we heard we were getting a season 2, so maybe we'll get some of this stuff in season 2, or possibly finale. But I was thinking that, like, that was just like a little tidbit there. Like, here's a lab. I was at your guys' birth. Here's this, here's that. And then it kind of like went away from there. I was like, oh, they're saving that for later. That's pretty much like, we're dropping this hint now. We're going to pay it off much later from now. So that was my thinking when we heard Omega say that.
And then when they're in the lab, AZ, the droid shows up and it mentions that there are no clones left on this facility. So they've all been shipped off-world. Where they've been transferred to, not 100% sure. They didn't make it clear. And then Crosshair and Hunter speak. We cut to Crosshair and Hunter, and they speak about the inhabited chip. It's not the kind of Hunter. Crosshair doesn't give the answers exactly. So obviously they do discuss that later on in the episode. So we'll come back to that. Then we cut again to Tech, Wrecker, and Echo as they're telling Omega to wait in the droid kind of hangar whilst they go and deal with Crosshair and try and get Hunter back. And then we see the kind of early stages of Dark Troopers, which we see in The Mandalorian, which of course Luke takes out. These are way earlier stages and just don't look as cool. But the Bad Batch are then ambushed. Omega attempts to help them. At first makes things worse and basically sends all the kind of the Dark Troopers out to kind of make things worse for them, basically. So I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
And then basically Crosshair has a kind of discussion going on with Hunter as well. It explains that he feels betrayed and abandoned by the Bad Batch, which is an interesting take on things from his perspective. The music is great in this moment. This is probably the strongest emotional moment in the episode. Maybe the Bad Batch could have done more from a certain perspective and
certain point of view.
Exactly. And maybe they should have stuck with Crosshair, or maybe they did leave too early. Who knows? That's all opinions, really. Crosshair then explains to Hunter he wants them to join the Empire because he thinks he's an elite soldier. He's almost as if he's born to take over and to kind of sees himself above as troopers or regular clones or regs, as they call him, and he has a certain purpose, which is why he wants to be involved in the Empire. You can see they're obviously taking over the galaxy. He wants to be a part of that and have a say in their dealings. Across the way he asked him, as well as if it's similar to Empire Strikes Back and other things as well. Join me. We come to take over the galaxy like brothers, kind of thing. So yeah, join me and we can run the galaxy, whatever they say. And then Crosshair then proves his worth by killing the stormtroopers who are there. Because Hunter says, "I don't trust you." He kills the stormtroopers with one bullet as well, which is crazy. And then it feels like they were it feels like they were meant for, but basically Crosshair tells them it seems like to me that Crosshair doesn't care about the Empire. He's just using them as a platform to enforce or be in charge as best he can, rather than roaming the galaxy like them, which he criticizes them doing. So I just felt that it was interesting where he seems to be so even though he necessarily doesn't mind being used, to have that authority and to be, to be in charge, and to oversee people who he thinks he's that are lesser soldiers than him or lesser people than him. Just sees himself as an elite soldier. So, what are your thoughts on kind of Crosshair saying all these things, all the engagement with Hunter, and seeing all these fight scenes against these kind of low level dark troopers?
I think Crosshair, what we were seeing with that is he views himself more as a soldier than probably any of the other members of the Bad Batch. He's very much, it's like, I'm a soldier, this is my life. And you see that in real life too, where people, when they're soldiers, they only know how to be soldiers, and when they come back to civilian life, they have a hard time transitioning because they only know how to be soldiers. So I think that's kind of what Crosshair is. So it's like, if it's the Republic, if it's the Empire, if it's whatever, I'm a soldier, so I'm just gonna be a soldier. That I found, and I wrote the quotes down because they were very interesting to me. Because from Crosshair, they don't leave behind their own most of the time. So that part's basically saying they left me, or you weren't loyal to me. I was one of you. You may have forgotten, but I haven't. That's why I'm going to give you what you never gave me, a chance. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, Crosshair's not completely corrupted by the chip. We obviously find out a little bit later. That was so fascinating to me. And the fact too, he probably felt hurt when they were like, how are we able to trust you in this moment? And he's like, oh, let me show you why, and takes out. And he does view himself as an elite soldier. He views himself better than the regs. I think he views himself even better than these humans that he's training. So he's like, we are better than them. Join me along and we can be brothers again. And I think Crosshair just really misses being around his brothers. And so if you look at it from his point of view and where his mindset is, that he's just like a guy who misses his brothers and they feels betrayed by them and they left him. And so I was just like, oh, that's kind of sad from his point of view.
Yeah, and then we see some nice scenes where he kind of joins up with the Bad Batch to take on all these Dark Troopers, and seeing them fight kind of again like like the old days, I guess, from their point of view. And then you can hear the Bad Batch theme, really swelling, and yeah, it was kind of nice to see
That's
them
great.
kind of teaming up and taking out everyone and stuff. Rampart then is informed by a stormtrooper that Crosshair has failed to in terms of the Hunter situation. So he tells a stormtrooper, Rampart tells a stormtrooper, leave them, let them die, you guys leave. And then Rampart basically speaks to Tarkin, so via hologram, and asked him if, Tarkin asked Rampart if has the chief scientist left or have they been removed off world. He informs him they have, obviously referring to Nala Se, and if the clones have also been removed off world, he confirms that they have. Tarkin then tells him the famous line, "You may fire when ready," as he does in New
Yeah.
Hope and Rogue One as well. So yeah, so again, another nice callback to the original trilogy. Hunter then confronts Crosshair kind of one last time to tell him that it's your inhibitor chip that's making you do all these things and behaving this way. Crosshair then reveals that his chip has been removed, which is like a bit of a plot twist at this point. A long time ago as well. He wouldn't confirm when. Hunter then stuns Crosshair. They check he seems like he checks his head to see if there's any scars there, or if there's a kind of any evidence of it being removed. You can't tell. There's a lot of kind of burns there, from the explosion that he was in. Maybe he's lying. I thought potentially. I don't know. And then going off to the ending scene, which probably, I know I said it before, but I felt this was the most emotional scene. I mean, connected to the music as well, where you see the shots of Kamino all empty and bare, and we've seen this in throughout the Clone Wars and obviously the Bad Batch and obviously the sequel trilogy as well. Sorry, the prequel trilogy, where we see Kamino full and vibrant, and millions of clones there, completely empty and bare, and bright and clean and everything, and then seeing it completely destroyed by these kind of blue lasers firing down from a dark and misty sky, and from these Imperial vendors, I think they're called, and the clones themselves firing, asking Rampart to permission to fire, and then clones themselves dressed as Imperials firing on the facility where they probably live at, which is, really surreal. And then the Bad Batch then try to escape. They're involved in all kinds of explosions, and basically it cuts to, we don't know what the situation is from there. So sharp, ending. But yeah, I felt that was the most emotional, seeing literally Camino being destroyed and having so much, this is what has happened to Camino, because I kind of always thought, what's the deal with Camino? So we know the answer. It's completely destroyed, or this base is anyway on Camino. So yeah, so there's a lot of history there. It's been destroyed now, which was emotional and a good ending, I thought. So yeah, overall thoughts on that last scene with Crosshair, him being stunned, and obviously this emotional ending with the Imperial vendors kind of blowing up the facility on Camino.
Yeah, we learned this episode that all the Kaminoans, they've either been shipped off because they've joined the Empire or they've been taken care of. So we know what they mean when they're taken care of. And that there's no more clones on the base. It's all the TK troopers, future stormtroopers. And they all leave Crosshair and the clones to die and to shoot on it, fire when ready. And so it was nice to hear that again, a nice little callback. But it was just like, oh, okay, this is exactly what's happening to Camino. And that's because that's for me as well. That was always a question. Like, it was such a cool place to see when you're watching the prequel movies. And I was very young when the prequel movies came out. So to me, like, they hold a special place in my heart. Even as an adult, you can see the flaws in it. I still enjoy watching all of those movies even now. And it was always like, what happened to the Kaminoans? And seeing that with this show, kind of just what happens to that base, that was an emotional moment. And then just Crosshair and Hunter, you hear him earlier saying, you betrayed me, you left me, basically. And then after being stunned, them picking him up. They could have very well just been like, oh, he betrayed us, so we're gonna leave him here. But they didn't do that. They picked him up. They ran off. They're trying to protect him as well. And so just the fact that they still see each other as brothers there, I was like, oh, this is so emotional. My heart.
Yeah, and so now predictions, moving into the last episode of the series, which is the finale part 2. So I think that because he is basically taken, I'm not sure if they will get captured from that facility, they're hiding or whatever. Maybe they've gone back underground. But if they do get captured by Rampart, I feel like potentially, and Crosshair may be executed for treason, and they might he might help the Bad Batch escape, or like kind of a last ditch attempt to try and save his brothers. That could be potential, and him get killed in the process. I think because they wanted Omega to call Rex. I think Rex might kind of turn up to help as well, give a helping hand, and maybe Boba Fett, maybe along with him or somehow in that journey. Potentially, I thought Vader to come and kind of assigned to do something with the Bad Batch or try and stop them somehow. Maybe a late appearance. Maybe they try and escape, and he tries to kind of stop them from escaping, or maybe they do escape, or maybe that he kind of comes last second and they do manage to escape, and that's the season 2 cliffhanger, because just to confirm as well, season 2 of the Bad Batch was announced this week, so it's been renewed. So clearly not everyone's going to be killed or anything, so but maybe we might lose 1 or 2, who knows, or maybe some
they all die and we start new.
Yeah. But yeah, it could be potentially Inquisitors instead of Vader, maybe. Or like I said, maybe they all get away, including Crosshair, and they just have to kind of live and kind of try and get along, and them together, with Crosshair causing problems and try and being underhand and all that stuff. So that could be a possibility. And that's basically, again, just to reiterate, will any of them die? Hunter, Crosshair, maybe someone else random. We'll see, because that would be a good way for us to want season 2 more. Okay, what happened next? What is going to happen next? That kind of thing. And something as well, just being on Camino, I've mentioned it a few times in the past. I just think it's really interesting, the whole cloning thing, and just clones in general. I find them interesting and personable somehow, even though they're all like the same, but they're all personable because they're like born into this life. They do not have a choice. Accelerated birth rate. So if they're younger than, you know, Omega, they could, if Omega's, what, 13, 14, they could potentially be like 7 years old. And look at look at, they're already like kind of war torn veterans, and I just find that super interesting. And like they almost have never had the
Wrecker's a
free will.
5-year-old.
Exactly. They've never had like the free will option, or you never had a choice. They've just been born to fight, bred almost to fight, and not given kind of the best life. So I would always find that interesting, and what having the choices that they have to make, or being good soldiers, follow orders and all that. So yeah, it's super interesting. So overall predictions that you have, any theories and any expectations moving into the final episode of season 1?
I'm thinking, I was like, what does Filoni like to do? He likes to put Ahsoka in all of his projects. Was it, I believe it was the season finale of season 1 of Rebels when Ahsoka showed up, right? Was it season 1 or season 2?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just like,
start of season 2.
Yeah, so I was like, we might actually see Ahsoka. If not, I think we will definitely see her next season, because we saw her in Mandalorian. We've seen her in everything that Filoni has done. So I was just like, he's probably going to put Ahsoka in there because Ahsoka's his girl. And so I was just like, before I wasn't on the Ahsoka's going to show up in this, but I was been thinking about it. I was like, Filoni loves putting her in the projects. This would be a perfect way. If Rex comes back to help save, bring in Ahsoka as well. That would be an interesting moment. I want to know how long is a long time ago when he got his chip out? And did he have his chip out before Order 66 happened? And if that's the case, why didn't he tell any of his brothers? And so that's very interesting to me. The same with like Hauser. I was like, why didn't they tell Hauser about the chip when they left him? They basically just like left him there and kind of like, hey, by the way, like there's this thing you might want to get out. Or the fact that Rex also didn't tell what's his name? The deserter, the one from the deserter episode of Clone Wars.
Yeah, is it I'll just check. Yeah.
Cutler Quain.
Yeah,
Cutler Quain. The fact that Rex didn't tell him, and he found out, he was like, oh, Rex just left, and then he finds out that episode that there's a chip. So I'm like, why are these clones not telling each other about this chip once they know about the chip? So that's my main question. Is like a chip watch here. Like, what's going on with the chips? When did they come out? Why are they not being discussed more amongst each other? And I think too that I'm still on the Crosshair's gonna die. Where before you've been on the Hunter's gonna die train. I don't know if you still are, but I think
I'm not too confident, but it's a possibility.
I'm definitely. I was like, yeah, Crosshair's gonna sacrifice himself, and that's when he's gonna become fully good again. Is he sacrifices himself for his brothers? I can definitely see that happening next episode. And them not getting the answer of how long ago was long ago, and they have to find it out in some records, or Nala Se might know, or something of that nature. And that's something we find out later after his death. I think that might be what happens.
Yeah, I don't know when they took his chip out. They didn't make it clear. Maybe they will address it in the last episode. But I thought maybe when he was a part of the explosion, maybe it was damaged then, or that kind of issue, because he's clearly got some kind of damage on his head there. So maybe he got it removed then. I thought that kind of is a convenient time to get it removed. So whether that's the answer or not. Another thing as well about Ahsoka.
He said a long time ago, though. That's the part that, yeah.
Yeah. But who knows? Because we don't know how long this has been, post Revenge of the Sith.
True.
Could be 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year. There's no actual clear time frame in it. And I believe, because I was thinking this a few weeks ago, that I believe this series is the first series or movie in Star Wars that we have not seen a lightsaber. So I think in every movie, even Rogue One or Solo, one scene at least there's a lightsaber in. Obviously Rebels, in Clone Wars, in Resistance, Kylo Ren is in it. So at least Force use or a lightsaber. So he's in a few holograms. Vader is, and Kylo Ren. So you just like Force choke people across holograms and stuff. So yeah, so I don't think, for either Force use or lightsabers are not in this as of yet. So I guess they might break that trend with Vader
Lightsaber
or
episode
Ahsoka.
1. Episode 1 we saw with Deva Balaba and with
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Kanan.
Yeah. True. So Force use, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's broken. So numbers, forgot. Yeah. So
I was agreeing. I was like, you're right,
yeah,
and I was like, wait a second, no.
that was right. Yeah. So that seemed like a separate thing, almost like a separate movie.
You're right. That was a
like an
separate
in-between
movie,
thing.
and then they started.
Yeah, because it was a longer episode as well. Yeah, I didn't
Right.
include that as the Bad Batch because that was like a Kanan episode almost.
You're right.
But yeah, no, okay, so maybe not. But yeah, who knows? You know, could be Vader, could be Ahsoka. Hopefully, I think Rex will definitely show up. But yeah, interesting things to happen. I thought with the Hunter situation, if there wasn't a season 2, I would say almost definitely. But now, probably not because he is. You know, they have renewed season 2. You know, he's the lead of the series pretty much. So I think it's still a possibility, but I doubt it. Because you know she's not ready to lose a kind of teacher as of yet. So we'll see. Even though she's like,
Even though she's older than him,
their auntie basically. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely weird. But any to rank the episode, you know, really strong. Yeah, 7.5 probably. I did really enjoy it. So music was great. Visuals, of course, looks great. You know, I did notice a lot of shadowing with Crosshair and like Hunter. Hunter was obviously fully lit a lot of times, but Crosshair, you can see the shadows, you know, like bags over his eyes and stuff. So did definitely notice that. Some like Inquisitor vibes I got of him. So like the Grand Inquisitor. But anyway, overall thoughts, any final thoughts? And if you want to rank the episode, please.
I think I'm going to rank this an 8 out of 10. Just every part of it, I was fully on. It gave me the questions, but like not of the, oh, these questions are not going to be answered in the future. Or like oh, they're leaving too much questions here. Mm-hmm. It was like the right amount of questions for excitement for the next episode and the next season. And I just very much thoroughly enjoying the season, very much thoroughly enjoyed this episode. The music, fantastic. Like each moment, like I had to like pause and just like really like appreciate the music that we were hearing in this episode. And I know the music has been great in previous episodes, but really this episode was when I was just like, I wrote it in my notes too. It's like, this is amazing. And as a band kid, it definitely like it gave me all of those Star Wars feels, listening to all of the different Star Wars music, the swell of the Bad Batch theme when they were all fighting together with Crosshair. Like I was like, this is beautiful.
Yeah, and I presume I believe it's Kevin Kiner, you know, who obviously scored the Clone Wars TV series and Rebels, so I presume it's him as well. Yeah, if it is, he's doing one hell of a job. So it might be the strongest thing in the whole series. Plus some of the CG, you know, the animation is absolutely beautiful as well. But that's it. So moving into the finale part 2, which is next week. So yeah, I felt like it could have even finished today, and I would be reasonably satisfied with that ending. So not too much overall expectations, more hope, more predictions, what to see next. But yeah, it's like Kamino's destroyed. They're kind of all together. So yeah, they've done well in this episode to tie up a lot of things, especially with the Crosshair situation. So I was quite satisfied, and the Kamino situation pretty much tied a lot of that up. So now we'll see what they're going to do in the last episode. But super interesting. We can't wait to talk about it next week, of course. Please like the video, comment, you know, what are your thoughts on the episode, any potential predictions, overall thoughts on the series, of course. But yeah, subscribe to the channel, watch out on our kind of other reviews, trailer reactions. We have a Suicide Squad review dropping as well this week. So please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff on them as well. So I've been Bogz, that's been Sol, and we'll see you next week for the big finale, part 2 of the Bad Batch series. May the Force be with you, I guess.
May the Force be with you.